Dear friends, welcome to the Wednesday Word on Wednesday the 25th of September. This week we return to Psalm 23, having taken a break last week. In the first three verses of the psalm, the sheep is passive. He or she is being provided for, made to lie down, being led, refreshed and guided by the Lord, who is their shepherd. But in verse 4 they become active, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, or the valley of deep darkness. They're walking through a terrifying, deep, dark valley of some sort. Now, before we think about what help the Lord provides in the valley next week, let's think about that little phrase, even though, because it provides great comfort when we're going through a valley of deep darkness. In the previous verse, we're reminded that the shepherd leads us in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. The shock is that those paths of righteousness sometimes take us through the valley of the shadow of death. That means that if we find ourselves in a deep, dark valley, it's because the Lord has led us there. One of the privileges that I have as a pastor is to be with people as they enter the valley of the shadow of death or accompany their loved ones there. I'm always very conscious at those times that the Lord is with us, leading us through that valley. Death has come, not because the Lord has abandoned us, but because it is his good and perfect will for that person and for their loved ones. It's so important for us to remember this, because if God is not in charge in the valley, then everything that happens in it, then how are we to know that he will get us through it? God provides for us in every circumstance of life, when we're lying down in green pastures and being led beside still waters, and when our way passes through the valley of the shadow of death. Now, some people object to this idea of God bringing death and bereavement on us, especially unexpected, violent or young death. But the fact is that God is sovereign over all things that happen in his world. He's not the author of death and suffering, but he does allow them, and he promises to walk with us through such times. We see this supremely when our shepherd himself walked through the valley of deepest darkness as he travelled towards and endured the cross. He shrank from such suffering. Now is my soul troubled, he said. And what shall I say? Father, save me from this hour. But for this purpose I have come to this hour. But he submitted to the Lord's purpose of him enduring that cosmic darkness of the wrath of God against the sins of the world. For him, the path through the deepest darkness was the path to unimaginable good, the redemption of the world. This helps us to believe that when we are going through the valleys of death or depression or 1,000 other types of darkness, that the valley is not the destination, but the journey. For Jesus, his path was the humiliation of the incarnation and the horror of the cross, but it led to resurrection and the crown of glory. So for us, our path in this life is certain to take us through times of pain and suffering. But as we walk with our shepherd, we can be sure that the valley leads to a crown. He knows the way through the valley. He's been there before. He is ahead of us. One final thing to say is that next week another member of the ministry team will be bringing the Wednesday Word, because I'll be in Kenya from the 28th of September to the 4th of October, visiting our mission partners at St Julian's Anglican Training Centre near Nairobi, speaking on a preaching conference for clergy, lay readers and evangelists from the Anglican Church in Kenya. Please pray for me and for Rupert Shelley from Crosslinks, who will be sharing the teaching. And our theme is preaching Old Testament narratives, and we'll be taking the Joseph narrative in Genesis 37 to 50 as our texts. I will see you on my return. God bless you today.